Okay, I've just returned from seeing the brand new movie, The Exorcist Believer, the 50 years later sequel to the original Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, the classic. And the best thing I could say about this sequel is that at least William Friedkin isn't alive to have to see it. All right, because I knew going into this that it wasn't going to be much. I felt it, I could tell that it was going to be just dull and it wasn't going to have the same kind of makeup and effects or anything to match the original. And sure enough, it pretty much was exactly as I pegged it to be. The reason that I really wanted to see it was because of the return of the original star from the first movie, Ellen Burstyn, who's now, I think, 90 or in her early 90s. She comes back to reprise her role as Chris McNeil, the mom of Linda Blair, the possessed girl, in the original Exorcist. And I knew going into that her part wasn't going to be much. Well, first of all, I don't think Ellen Burstyn is in the movie for more than 10 minutes, if that, when you take all the time. And this movie was pretty much as average as they come. Not god awful and terrible or unwatchable, and nothing good. Just completely kind of like just dead on arrival, automatic, you know, automatic slot there as mediocre. In looking to find good things to say about it, I'm kind of stumped. I can't really find anything good to say about it. I think I like Leslie Odom Jr. as uh, the main character, the father of one of the girls who gets possessed, because in this movie we have two little girls. You know, the first one had one, now we're going to up the ante with two girls getting possessed. They're school friends. They go into the woods and hang out in the woods and perform some weird ritual, and the next thing you know, they're missing. And we spend a good part of the beginning of the movie trying to find out where these girls have gone and why they're missing. And it's pretty boring and tough sledding, and just nothing really to invest our interest here as the families are trying to you know, unravel the mystery of what happened to their girls. I mean, you have Odom Jr., who is the father of one of the girls, and then you have a couple. I don't know their names, the actors who play the parents of the other girl. It doesn't matter. I mean, they try to throw in a few different complexities here. Like, for example, the parents of one girl, the mother and father, they were religious. They go to church. They take the little girl to church, and she gets up and she walks around and screams things out. You know, I should have mentioned from the beginning of this, there are no spoilers here, by the way. There's no spoilers in this review. So you don't have to worry about that if you're continuing here. Okay, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but nothing really happens. You know, we know 50 years ago, the original Exorcist shook the world and changed so many things about cinema and horror cinema in particular. If you're 10 years old and this is your first movie, you've never seen a horror movie before, you're going to be scared probably. But for anybody that's seen the original Exorcist, all its many imitators, clones, ripoffs, and comedy spoofs, there is no way you're going to get anything out of this. That's what it comes down to. And I kind of felt that going in, because we've been here, done that a million times, again and again and again and again, and it's just become old hat. And some of the things are unintentionally funny, and some of the things like the demonic possession voices that were so effective in the first film when it was kind of a new novel thing have now worn off. And every time you hear the voices of the demon, it's like, here we go again, spare me the deep scary voice. You know, it's always the same thing. There is nothing in this movie, Exorcist Believer, nothing that matches, let alone surpasses, anything from the original William Friedkin Exorcist. Nothing. Not one moment, not one noteworthy scene, not one noteworthy shock, not one like over the top effect. There is nothing in here that you're going to watch and say, wow, that rivals the original. That was done almost as good as the original. Okay? Nothing to see here. Nothing at all. And as far as Ellen Burstyn coming back as Chris McNeil, as I said, she has a very short amount of time in the film, and she unfortunately adds nothing to the movie. You know, I don't even know why she did it. I mean, did she need the money this late at the end of her life? She waits this far till the end of her life to come in to do this. I wish she hadn't done it. Her character, even in the movie, in the story, what in the world is her character going to do to aid this problem and try to help out? There's nothing she can do. In the movie, Chris McNeil now has written a book long ago about her experience with the exorcism, having, I guess, a possessed daughter, Reagan, who was played by Linda Blair in the original, and her daughter has shunned her. Her daughter hasn't liked that she didn't like that she wrote a book about her, so her daughter Reagan hasn't seen her in decades, and she fears, she's never going to see her daughter again because she kind of got pissed off at mom for putting all this down on paper or whatever. So again, you see Ellen Burstyn, she comes on the scene. It's kind of ludicrous what she does in the movie. There's a really ludicrous scene. I can't believe they actually went ahead and did this with the character of Chris McNeil. But another thing I'll tell you is, in the original movie, The Exorcist, the mom just basically watched her daughter become possessed. She didn't perform in the exorcism. I mean, mom didn't exorcise the demons herself. What the hell can she possibly do to be of any kind of assistance here? Nothing. All she can do is be a shoulder to cry on and say, yeah, I know what it means. My little girl was possessed too. I mean, there's no benefit to her, except for the box office, of course, and everything. And again, I'm surprised that Ellen Burstyn actually lowered herself to do it. I wish she had stayed out of it. And again, without spoiling anything, which I won't, I think what she tries to do in this film is really ridiculous, and the way it ends for her is really, really, really stupid and cheap, to put it that way. You have to see it to understand what I'm talking about. Well, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, I will say that the last shot of the movie is a happy ending. It has a good last shot of the movie that I kind of think, oh, that was nice, but that's it. There's been so many of these after the original Exorcist. Exorcist 2, which is a bomb. It's a notorious, lousy, sucky sequel to one of the worst sequels to a great movie ever made. Exorcist 3 is actually good, and I always recommend Exorcist 3. The other ones, they had two prequels by different directors taking a stab at doing prequels. I really will say that the only Exorcist film worth watching as of right now, I would say, is Exorcist 3. And the reason that works, by the way, without doing a whole video on Exorcist 3, is because Exorcist 3 functions as a detective story. As I say, if you're going to make an Exorcist film today, I don't care whether it's, I don't know these other movies, Emily Rose, the Exorcism of Emily Rose, or any of these things. We don't have to see people drooling, spitting up stuff, writhing around and bouncing around and everything, and speaking in demonic voices. That stuff is done. It's finished. They've done it to death. Exorcist 3 worked because it was a different approach. It was a detective story about a cop and how he unravels some things, and that's why it's interesting. But the whole thing about the usual exorcism formula, long out the window. All right, so this is completely like 2 out of 4 stars if I'm going to rate it. Now, that's being generous. Yeah, your mileage may vary. What a waste of time. By the way, I was the only one in the theater. Yeah, I went to see it on a Friday at 12:30 in the afternoon. Everybody's working. It's the first showing of the day at this theater. The only single person in the theater. What a horrid experience, and not for the right reasons.